This is a clicker. The purpose of the clicker is to participate in class in such a way that allows for instantaneous connection between all the students in the classroom. This can be done through a hook question posted on the smartboard, or it can be done through just regular interaction for informal assessment. These clickers all have buttons on them, and they allow for students to answer true and false, multiple choice questions, or even numerical response if you were in a mathematics class. This works for not only participation in having the students answer questions to get them interested in a lesson for intrinsic motivation, this also works towards assessment and allowing students instantaneous feedback on their assessment based on their answers that they input into the clicker. Really, the purpose of this capstone project is to find if there's a correlation or a link between these clickers and participation and motivation, and finding out if that link carries over to a special education population. So, the school in question is Gyro Middle School. That's kind of a misnomer, as the school goes from grades pre-K to grade 8. The school generally has a total of 645 students, and of those 645 students, approximately 38% are special education. The class in question is a 6th grade class, which is a CTT class, which stands for Collaborative Team Teaching. They must maintain a ratio of 65% general education to 35% special education. In the class right now, there are 23 students, and of the 23 students, 10 of them are special education. There's currently a lot of literature in regards to technology in the classroom, and there's also an increasing number of literature about clickers in the classroom. There isn't a lot of literature currently about special education classes using clickers in the classroom. The current literature starts with Hoffman and Goodwin, and what they basically talk about is a link between clickers and the discussion level of the class. As the clickers are used, the discussion level tends to increase. This was done in a college level setting, and it was done very qualitatively. I recommended using a rubric to actually measure out the differences of discussion and the actual range of discussion from the students. So I took the Hoffman and Goodwin study and kind of morphed it into my own. Penwell, Boscardine, Mason, and Crawford also spoke that there was increased participation in a middle school setting by using clickers, and that the peer-to-peer interaction was much greater and much stronger. That's something that I really wanted to quantify by actually putting numerical data along with it. King and Joshi is another important piece of literature here, who say that there's no difference between races and there's no difference between genders in regards to the use of the clickers, that they are ultimately on a level playing field regardless of socioeconomic status, as long as they have the clicker in their hand and they're trained on the clicker, that there is no problem in regards to one group lagging behind the other. That's especially important when we're talking about equal access idea in the classroom. The one other thing I wanted to bring up is Anthis. Anthis really spoke quite a bit about technology not replacing the teacher, And I think that that's something that needs to be discussed in this study as well. It makes sense to most teachers that the teacher will not be replaced. However, it stands to reason that some politico may feel a need to remove a teacher from the classroom and replace it with technology. That is not necessarily going to work. The teacher still needs to teach and be a skilled teacher in order to make the technology work in the classroom. When thinking about the actual research and the actual methodology behind the research, it became important to me to remember the actual literature that was gleaned upon, especially Hoffman and Goodwin, who went out of their way to say that there was a link between clickers and the discussion level. So I thought by utilizing a rubric, it would be great to not only gain qualitative data, but quantitative data as well, by actually measuring not only the quality of the discussion, but also measuring the pure amounts. Those are available to look at in the actual, I believe it's figures 1, 1A through 1F, and figures 2, 2A, and 2B. It was also important to use the Likert scale. The Likert scale definitely helped me analyze trends, and the utilization of the Likert scale was a very easy way to quickly gain information and kind of insight into the minds of my students. That was also done through interviews. And the interviews generally gave me an opportunity to actually speak one-on-one to these students in a generalized sense and get their actual mindset on how the clickers affected their communication in the classroom. What I found very interesting, and as you go through the actual numbers, you'll see this. Their actual view of whether the clickers were helpful or not was drastically different from the numbers that we generated from the actual counting. So there was a dichotomy there that needs to be discussed and kind of checked out as we go forward throughout this process. So we are now going to start to discuss the Likert scale questions. And there were 6 questions. You can read them on top over here. And they're all dealing with technology and the way participation and technology seem to correlate. The first one was about whether technology plays a major role in their lives. And you see from this information that for the vast majority it does. And whether they generally participate in class, again, this is all self-reported, so the teacher may have a different result than the students do, but the students do feel that they participate in classes that they enjoy. The next one was about whether they enjoy using the clickers or not. And this shouldn't be a surprise at all. I very strongly agree in regards to whether they have fun with it or not. But whether they participate more with the clickers than without is where we run into a really interesting situation, because the kids do not necessarily feel that they participate more with the clickers. None of them feel that the clickers are really a waste of class time. However, when we're looking at whether they learn better with the clickers, they're kind of out to lunch and they don't really know whether or not they feel that way. What's really interesting is that when we bring out the spreadsheet representing the amount of participation without the clicker and with the clicker, we see something very interesting. We actually see that the kids perform better with the clicker than without the clicker from a raw number perspective. 7 participations compared to 4.5, which is a 54% increase or a 54% change in regards to whether you're not using a clicker or you are using a clicker. Looking at this last graph, you can visually see this. You could see the peaks and valleys in regards to without a clicker and with a clicker. So it is obvious that the kids are producing more presentations or more participations with the clicker, but they aren't quite cognizant of that fact. So the interview showed some really interesting aspects to this study. I interviewed 6 special education students in the classroom. They are part of the inclusion classroom, and the information they gave me about the Centios and the way that they viewed the Centios really made sense in regards to a 13-year-old's or a 12-year-old's mindset towards what they enjoy and how it changes from something mundane to something authentic to them. They talked about the clickers being like a video game, being able to control the action through something like this. It gives them the opportunity to play around and click, which really made some of them also feel like they were on a game show. And as much as that sounds ridiculous, I know when I was young, I was a kid who used to run down, and whenever Bob Barker told me to come on down, I used to run down the stairs and yay! So I can understand that. One of the kids said that they felt like Jeopardy whenever they were on whenever they were using the Centios, because they were able to click in. And this goes back to something else that came out in these interviews: the idea of kinesthetic learning. They like things hands-on, and they like to be able to use things hands-on. One of the students I spoke to as well, named Joe, felt that he was too shy to talk in front of the class in general because he has some significant speech issues. However, the Centios made him more confident in the environment, and when he was confident in the environment, he was more confident in his work, which makes sense to me because if we're thinking about the zone of proximal development, in order for a student to actually move into the zone of proximal development, they need to feel comfortable with